Moving away from math, I'm going to talk about grammar and short verbal, first addressing synonym questions and sentence completion questions. If you're interested in analogies, please see the website. Here's a synonym question, and the key point here is going to be learn the vocabulary, know the words. There are a few strategies, but none of them are better than that. However, if we don't know, let's do our best always keeping in mind the test architect's design. We'll check out the answers, knowing that we have sent, which is fine, we'll keep that. Dole out, perhaps we see dole in the original word. Sure again, we know the meaning. There could be something with the prefix re associated with this. We get to condolence, and finally we have something that we can get rid of, because the chances of a word in English rhyming with a word that has the same meaning is extraordinarily rare, and we're playing the percentages anyway because we have to guess. Lastly, we have remonstrative, and again we might notice that there's an RE at the beginning, and then ask ourselves, which question number is this? Because we know that the difficulty increases as we move forward in this section, which means more difficult vocabulary words and likely more traps. So we may be able to eliminate some answers that look like tricks. But what we don't want to do is spend a lot of time here because we know that we're guessing, and so we should do it quickly. Analyzing and studying it harder is not going to increase our chances. It's just going to waste time. So go ahead and make your guess after getting rid of D. The key point, of course, is to know the words, just memorize the vocabulary, because it is so much easier if we just know the word. All I have to do is memorize words. That's not even learning a new concept. It's not even doing a lot of practice on math problems or reading passages. I wouldn't even need the strategies that I showed because this area is not the same as that of any other on any of the other tests, where we may have the knowledge and they try to trick us. Here, we can solve this easily just by knowing and only using the strategies when we have no idea. This also should serve as a reminder that we are not a magical company and there is some knowledge and work required. On the sentence completion here, we have a much better chance with strategies if we don't know the word. However, their tricks will be much more active in this section, and therefore we should use the strategies regardless if we think we have the question under control. We don't want to look at the answers before we have our own word, and we'll see why in just a second. So we need to fill in the blank with our word. And if we struggle to do that, there's a strategy called recycling the words from the question, and we can just pick those, working together, right out of the problem. Now that we have our own word, we can look and see which one matches with the answers. Even if we didn't know that collaborative and working together matched, we would be able to tell that profitable, creative, glamorous, and high cost do not mean working together, and eliminate our way to the right answer. Because together is the key word in the sentence. Let's think about it this way in order to see their trick. If we didn't have that down and hadn't identified that as the key part, filmmaking is a blank effort. Well, any one of these could work. Filmmaking is a profitable effort, a creative effort, a collaborative effort, a glamorous effort, a high-cost effort. We could say these in a conversation and nobody would think twice about it. Even with the full sentence we could. But that is the trick. We have to find the clue. Informally, there are two concepts tested on the grammar section. The overwhelmingly large part is about knowing the rules and choosing the right answer. Let's see what that looks like. Each of the children, complimenting Dr. Lin and Mr. Lee on their overwhelming success in the golf match at St. Andrews, approach him and give their heartfelt admiration. It doesn't even sound that bad. However, let's take a closer look and see what rules have been violated. Even though children is plural, each of is singular, and therefore we would have to match the proper pronoun, which is his or her. Again, the verbs have to match as well, as we see that approach is going to be wrong when we need approaches. Dr. Lin and Mr. Lee, they are plural, and so they're going to need a plural pronoun in order to match with them when we relate to them later in the sentence. And here's an error which you can't even hear when you say it, but the original complimenting is to add on to something, but the meaning we're looking for is to say something nice to somebody. Now, I'm fully willing to admit that for the sake of efficiency and the ease of demonstration, I have made this problem a combination of issues that even the evil test makers would not combine into a single question. We can see the correct version below, but how could we possibly figure this all out? The first step is that we will need to know the rules and not trust our ears. But there's also another popular trick that they're using here, and that's to put filler between the subject and verb, as we see each of the children as the subject, which is singular, and we don't even get to the verb until approach, which is plural. If they had that, and that was the only thing they were testing, then it would trick our ear because of all the stuff that comes between them. So the strategy would be to read it without the filler. We've also seen it with his or her versus their, because each of is singular. We frequently like to use their as a singular, but actually the word their can only be used for plurals. For example, did you see their Facebook post? When referring to a singular person. However, that's incorrect. It needs to be his or her. Or we could see if the evil company wants to play it that way, then that's on them. Well, the company is singular, so we would have to say that's on it. And that doesn't sound very normal. In fact, it sounds quite strange. The strategy then is to not trust your ears, check the agreement of the nouns, verbs, and pronouns, and most importantly, know the rules. So let's take a look at an actual question. Normally exhibiting the most balanced of personalities, she becomes angry when she encounters prejudice. Now, this is in number 17, but in the grammar section there is no order of difficulty. So let's look at some strategies we can use. Any time that two answers are the same, or for all intents and purposes are the same, like using yet or but instead of one or the other, we can eliminate both because there cannot be two right answers and the test makers cannot defend one answer being correct and the other one being incorrect. So we can see in B and C that they are essentially the same. Having two answers that are essentially the same happens most often in the grammar sections of the ACT and SAT. Another important strategy is to pick the more concise answer if all else is equal. Furthermore, if a student is truly a coin flip between two answers and one of them is no change, that should be the selection. The most important, though, is to make sure that the sentence, like the previous problem, is parallel in form, that the form is matching, it's consistent. The action becomes and the action is encountering in answer D are different forms, and therefore it's incorrect. The other type of grammar question is not actually about breaking rules. It's about what will be the best way to write. Let's take a look at these two paragraphs in a story about a son and his father, notated by a blue line for paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 being under the bracketed 3. As noted, the answers for this question are going to be grammatically correct, but we need to consider logic and style, and most importantly, as usual, parallel matching consistency in the correct answer. As we see, paragraph 2 mentions a father, a brother, and a missed trip. These elements should be present in the transition sentence. We notice in H that while they do mention the father and the author and a trip, the brothers are absent. J is way off the mark. Even though correct is written, does have some of the elements that we're looking for, it doesn't have all of them. And so G is going to be our best choice because we can see that go with him matches with the father and the trip. We is referring to the brothers, all the while maintaining the meaning about sleeping in that was in the original sentence. That's it for grammar. We looked at proofreading and editing pertaining to the SAT and ACT, as well as the synonyms and sentence completions which pertain to the SSAT and the ISEE.